we tell people a lot and who are going through grief, not to say, let me know what you need, but just show up and do.
Yes.
And that same thing, saying, I think a lot of people are worried that I'm going to upset somebody, or maybe they're not thinking about it today and now they're going to think about it. Maybe they're having a day where everything's okay and that's more lighthearted, and I don't want to make it heavy or hard for them. But even just acknowledging them, it lets them know that they're still seen.
Mm-hmm.
And it lets them know that you are thinking or caring or, concerned about them. Welcome to Reframe and Reclaim. We are Courtney Huckabee, a psychotherapist,
and Jen Harris, an interior designer who have teamed up
to reflect,
challenge,
and reframe your mindset in relationship with your personal belongings.
Join us as we discuss and declutter all of the stuff that keeps us stuck.
Learn to intentionally create environments with improved function and design that cultivate peace of mind. Find the reframe.
Start your reclaim.
Hi, welcome back to Reframe and Reclaim. I am Courtney Huckabee.
And I'm Jen Harris.
And we're here to talk about wrapping up the year, getting into the holiday season, the fall, the winter, all of the fun events that happen, the holiday season of whether it's Halloween and Thanksgiving and the fun runs and the fairs and the pumpkin patches and the Christmas lights and the Christmas gifts and all those things. Lots of memories come into mind. And so, the holidays can bring up lots of memories of nostalgia and our past, of how we have traditions in our lives. But for those of us who have loved ones who are no longer with us, sometimes that can bring up mixed emotions, not always of cheer and excitement and enthusiasm, but sometimes of sadness and despair and, sentiment and remembrance. And so we're here to talk about the holidays and how it's okay to not always be cheerful and just going with the change of life and change of chapters and how we try our best to manage those things.
Yes. So, some years it's easier than others. Like, I know early on, so if you listen to the podcast, you know that my father passed away when I was 15. October 2nd of 2025 will be 29 years since he passed, which is crazy to me. But there were some years early on where it was like the build up to the day and the anxiety going into the day was more intense than the actual day. And part of that was just I had grieved so much, like the 2 weeks leading up, and had cried so much and expressed so much emotion that by the time the day came, October 2nd came, like I had nothing left to give. Like I was just like emotionally drained, right? And some years it would be easier, and then the next year, which the way our human brains work, it's like, well, it's been another year, so it should just naturally be easier because it's been more time, right? And then it's like it would hit harder some years than others for various reasons. I know, like after my first son was born, he was born exactly like 2 weeks before the 20th anniversary of his death, and it was my firstborn son was born in the same city in Austin that my dad was, and so it was like all these feels and postpartum hormones, and it was a rough one.
It is hard.
And then thinking of like, oh my goodness, he's never going to meet his grandsons. They're never going to meet him. They're never going to know, his funny, silly side. And so all those emotions can really hit just differently each year.
And as you have a death anniversary coming up in the holiday season, my father was born in October. And so, I'm trying to, when he's not here, he is no longer living, and thinking about, how do I want to remember him or honor him or, share his memory or celebrate him. It's not always easy. Every year is a little different. And I think it's really important to give yourself permission to not make it what you think it should be. Some years you may be really sad, and some years you may be really just like happy with cheerful memories. And we can't really predict what's going to happen. And that's the challenging part of grief.
Yes.
But also the challenging part of life chapters, just as you talked about, having a life chapter of your father not being here and then a son being here at the same time. There's just so many mixed emotions in that. And that can bring up a lot of things for you. But what I think has been so beautiful in how you have honored your dad is really trying your best to make sure you're honoring him through our book. We talk a lot
Mm-hmm.
about Jen's relationship with her father and how she's coped with grief, and how she's tried to honor her father and, do things that would be honorable to him, but also continue to live and create new things despite somebody not being in your life physically.
Yes, and with it, I mean, I will say like the first like 10 years it was always like my family tried to do something on like the death anniversary, and it was always like we tried to commemorate it. And then after the 10 years we were kind of really wanted to focus more on the positive and like really focus more on his birthday instead of his death day, which is December 4th. And so I find I still try to do something on both days, and normally it's something like we go play golf or we go eat a steak or eat his favorite food. And so it's just little things. It's not super big, um, extravagant remembrances, but it's those little things that I remember about him. In the book, I also talk about ways, you, you know, I've had challenges and opportunities as far as it goes with belongings, right?
Yes.
And a lot of that, as I talk about in the book, stems from when a lot of people, especially male figures, when I was younger, died at a young age. It was, well, what item are you going to take to remember them? What is it that's, what physical thing do you need in order to, have this memory? Which, after working through things, I realized you don't have to have a physical object in order to remember the person,
Mm-hmm.
right? But all the adults
Mm-hmm.
around me are saying this is how you remember them.
Yeah.
So I accumulated things, or it's like objects that my mom was ready to let go of. I was like, well, someone has to take it because if not, you're going to forget something. So we have to hold on to it. And even in my early 20s, so 5 years after he passed, I was already starting to like forget him. And it's like I would have to think about like, okay, what were his facial features like, and what was this? And I got really sad, and like I wrote papers about it in school because it was like this. I felt like I was doing a like dishonoring him in some way,
Sure.
and I felt guilt about it because it's like, am I forgetting him? And this person was so pivotal in my life. How am I forgetting him? And I really had to work through that and give myself the grace of like, you know, at that point at 20, he had been out of my life for 25% of my life, right? And so it was working through a therapist where it was like, oh, well, if I'm 40 and, the past 10 years is fuzzy, I mean, I give myself some grace that's like I don't remember every memory
Right.
of the last 25% of my life.
It's not just the person that you
Yes.
don't remember all the details of. It's all the parts of your life you've
Yeah.
experienced you're not remembering all the details of.
Yes.
And your brain is not meant to remember everything because there's only a limited amount of space
Yeah.
in there.
And I will say, like, even right after the death, I only had 6 memories of like the first year after his passing. Like, it was just too hard. And I remember reading this article because I would never dream about my dad either. And it made me sad because I was like, other people would have dreams about him and I never would. And I read this article that was basically saying like your mind will kind of open up whenever you're ready. And sometimes we don't dream about them because it would be too hard or it would be too emotional for us. And I remember the first dream I had of him after he passed was he was up on this hill and I was going to try and talk to him. And you'll love this as a therapist, right? So I kept asking him for like life advice. And he was in the pose of the famous sculpture, The Thinker. And so he's sitting like this on the top of the hill and not saying anything to me. And so I keep asking these questions and he's not responding. And so then that was frustrating too because I'm like, I want
I'm
some
finally
answers.
dreaming of you.
Yeah.
Talk to
You're
me.
not talking to me.
Communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, but going back to like the belonging side of it, again, the guilt of holding on to things. So I was 15 when it happened. He was playing golf whenever he passed away. It was a charity golf tournament. And so he had died actually like on the course and had a massive heart attack. And this was on a Wednesday night. And the last time I had spoken to him was on a Tuesday morning. And so, which wasn't uncommon. He worked like a third shift, and we had our relationship was kind of rocky towards the end, but we had a really good last conversation that Tuesday morning. And I remember he was like, he gave me a really big hug, and he was like, "I love you." And I remember thinking like, "This is weird," like, "Love you too. I gotta go to school." So I don't know if there was some like sixth sense or just, but I don't know. But it gave me a great sense of peace afterwards, to have that. But along with it, because it was very sudden, it was very. I had a lot of abandonment issues after that. Along with that, we had several family friends and people in our community who, I'm going to use the word should, as a 15-year-old, my expectations were I was taught these people are supposed to support you. They support, the widows and the orphans and the downtrodden. And most people just went along with their daily lives. And I felt very forgotten. My sister was 2 years old, and so a lot of the attention went to her because my mom's a single parent trying to raise a single, a young, a 2-year-old who has no recollection of her father. And so I don't like say these things to like blame these people. Like I get it. Life happens, and I think the majority of people have good intentions, but just life gets in the way. We get busy, and things just fall to the wayside. I mean, I've done it myself.
Well, and I feel like, as a part of a person who hears so many stories of grief and loss and challenges, sometimes, and I'm not giving any excuse or justification, but it is sometimes, oh, this is a teenager. She can do some things on her own, but this 2-year-old can't. So I'm going to put attention here.
Yeah.
But then there is well, what about me?
Right.
Well, I'm still grieving, and I have more understanding of what's happening, and I have more of this relationship, this experience with this person, and I'm trying my best to keep on going on with all the responsibilities and expectations, and maybe supporting other loved ones who are grieving too. And I think there's a lot of times people that forget that just because I look strong or I'm capable on the outside doesn't mean that I don't need support.
Yes, and my brother was 19 at the time. He was going off to college, and so it really was like a time of loneliness and like trying to just figure it out on my own, because there weren't a lot of people my age around me who had experienced this. My mom did take us to the Warm Place, which is an organization that it means a lot to both of us.
Yes.
And so that really helped me by just normalizing some things and meeting other people who had had death losses and were kind of understanding the same grief process I was going through. But it's like I definitely withdrew from school. I withdrew from a lot of things and just kind of became really introspective. I became a lot more serious. Because it's just like every day was just really heavy, right? And again, this isn't like to discredit anyone for what they did. I think we were all doing our best. I like to believe in, again, the best in people, and just the intent was there, but the execution fell by the wayside. And I'm really just wanting to share this and open up so that way people don't feel alone, because I think that's the hardest part of the whole process is especially like if it's your first time to have like a major life change, like you have no idea what to do, you don't know what to expect. Everything we're taught in education is like, an upward hill and it's a straight line. Yeah. And grief is a roller coaster and up and down and backwards, 2 steps forward, all zigzaggy. So that was a hard lesson to learn. And then, going back to your comment of being strong, like there's something called the conspiracy of silence. And so that was very strong everywhere in my life. Like where my mother was Irish Catholic. And so we have a strong sense of just suppress it, just push it down. It'll be fine. Just keep shoving it down.
And so many people have that,
yes.
that if I just push it away, if I push it to the side and I focus somewhere else, then I don't have to worry about it. And this conspiracy of silence is you're going to have to deal with it somehow, and it's going to come out some way. And it's not always like, oh, I just want to sit and, like Jen is doing right now, tell my story. That isn't easy for anybody to do during the, you know, very recent moments of any
Right.
death loss, or 20 years later, or 30 years later, And so it's a very challenging thing to be vulnerable, and to be honest about it was messy and it's not
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. And I still feel lots of different feelings about that, but that can really also convolute the holiday season for
Yes,
you.
yes. And, and again, just quickly touching on this conspiracy of silence, like with the pushing it down, it's like, well, I don't want to burden anyone. And I think a lot of people feel it around the holidays where it's like people are doing their own things with their own families. And so they don't want to hear about my sad story. And, so they just choose not to share. Meanwhile, a lot of times the other side want to talk about it. They want to check in, see how you're doing, but they also
But
don't want to upset you. Like they're
yes,
afraid if they ask you, then they're going to somehow make your day worse. And
yeah,
and so I would say, and you can speak more to this too, but from my perspective, it's it's okay to ask. People will tell you if they don't want to talk about it, but even just saying, hey, I'm just thinking about you. I'm here if you need me. And just putting it out there repeatedly. Because I think right after the funeral, everybody's like, call me if you need anything, or, I'm here for you if you need me. And then they disappear.
all good intentions.
Yes.
But, it's one of those things of, you know, in life, we tell people a lot and who are going through grief, not to say let me know what you need, but just
Mm.
show up and do.
Yes.
And that same thing, saying, I think a lot of people are worried that I'm going to upset somebody, or maybe they're not thinking about it today and now they're going to think about it. Maybe they're having a day where everything's okay, and that's more lighthearted, and I don't want to make it heavy or hard for them. But even just acknowledging them, it lets them know that they're still seen.
Mm-hmm.
And it lets them know that you are thinking or caring or, concerned about them. And people can say, thank you, or I don't want to talk about it, or, thank you for sharing that because I've been feeling all these things and so alone, or, it's been hard. But it allows opportunity to open that door if and when they're ready to talk
Yes.
about it.
And I think too, if you feel uncomfortable talking, you can always write a note and just say, hey, I'm just thinking about you today. Just wanted you to know.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great way to reach out.
Yeah, I can remember, my dad did not die during the holidays, around Christmas, Thanksgiving, in the fall, but he did pass, actually on Ash Wednesday. And so anytime I get around the Easter time, I start to get all of the sentimental and, mixed emotions. But I do remember coming home one day and there were flowers on my doorstep with a card. And it was just somebody showing up saying, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. Didn't even tell me they were coming to my house.
Mm.
Didn't tell me there was something on my doorstep, but it was there. And that really, I mean, my dad passed away in 2002, and here we are in 2025. Meant so much to me. And the person who did it was not like a really close friend. It was like in a group from church. And,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow, you thought of me? And so that was one thing that was really great. Or, those kinds of things when you're unsure what you want to say or how you want to say it, but somebody
Yeah.
just like brings you, you get a card in the mail, or they just come and give you a hug.
Yeah.
Showing up and acting sometimes means a lot more than let me know if you need something,
Right.
call me up, which is very thoughtful because some people don't know how to step in. But I always tell people, if you don't know what to do, what would you like for someone to do, and just do it. And if they say, oh, I didn't want that, at least they knew that you were thinking of them.
Yes. And I will say, of those 6 memories, one of those was a family friend of my dad's named Mark. He and his wife and their kids just showed up one Friday with pizza, super casual, just like, hey, just coming in. And it was like, to me, that was like the nicest gesture, and like, very unexpected. We weren't super close with him. And so that meant a whole lot to me. And that's one of the few memories I do have.
Yeah. And so I will say, we always talk about the cheerfulness and the happiness, but just know that we all have life chapters, and in every life chapter, we're all walking in a different direction, and sometimes have memories of things that are more challenging. I want to encourage you that if you have these memories or things that you're, letting people know, I'm having a harder day, or I need a quieter time, or I just need to talk to somebody. But if you know someone who has had that experience, it means a lot just to say, I'm thinking of you, or I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to call and say hello. And you don't have to mention the instance, whether it's a death loss or a divorce or,
Mm-hmm.
a change of jobs that they weren't anticipating. Just saying, I'm here and I want to spend time with you, or I want you to know that I see you and care about you.
Yes.
Yeah. So as you're entering into the holiday season, different chapters of life, just know that every year is going to bring new things, sometimes wonderful things and sometimes unexpected. But just because you're in this year and this chapter doesn't mean that past chapters won't be reminded as we get to traditions,
Mm-hmm.
as we get to our holiday times and memories and things that we've done. But make sure you're connecting with others, and connect with us if you have any things that you want to share about your life chapters and how you manage through some of the more difficult times in the holiday season.
Yeah, if there's anything someone has done for you that really meant a lot, or something that, how something that you would want someone to say or do if you're in this stage of life. I think again, just not knowing that you're not alone and that others have been through it, I think is tremendously helpful.
Yeah.
So
So leave us a comment, like if you like our content from today, and we'll be back soon with more information to share with you about Reframe and Reclaim.
And if this something is something that hits close to home, please be sure to share this with others, or if you know someone that's going through this process, share it with them. If you're feeling really overwhelmed, please reach out to a mental health professional. There are people out there to help you if you are struggling with the grief process. So we hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season, and just be at peace with where you are. So.